Hello friends, back with me again, Joseph, your host, and welcome back to Catechism for Kids. Today we're going to travel back in time, all the way to the 4th century, to learn about a very brave teacher named Saint Pimenius. His story is about courage, faith, and standing up for what you believe in, even when it's the hardest thing to do. His feast day is celebrated on December 2nd, so let's get ready to hear his incredible story. So who was Pimenius? Well, imagine living in the great city of Rome almost 1700 years ago. Pimenius was a respected priest and a very smart teacher. Parents trusted him to teach their children not just about reading and writing, but also about being a good person, and most importantly, about the Christian faith. He was known for being kind, wise, and deeply devoted to Jesus. One of his students was a very important boy. His name was Julian, and he was the nephew of the famous emperor Constantine the Great. As a young boy, Julian learned all about Christianity from Pimenius. In fact, Pimenius even baptized Julian and another of his students, a boy named Donatus. It seemed like Julian was on the right path, learning to love God just like his teacher. Pimenius probably had high hopes for his student, thinking he would grow up to be a strong Christian leader. But sometimes, people make choices that surprise us. As Julian grew up, things changed. After many twists and turns in Roman politics, he eventually became the Roman emperor in the year 361. But instead of being a Christian emperor like his uncle Constantine, Julian did something shocking. He announced that he no longer believed in Jesus. He turned his back on the faith he was taught and decided to bring back the old Roman pagan gods. He wanted everyone to worship Jupiter, Mars, and Venus again. Because of this, he became known in history as Julian the Apostate. The word apostate means someone who renounces their religious beliefs. Emperor Julian didn't just stop believing in Christianity for himself. He wanted to get rid of it completely. He started a persecution against the church. This was a very scary time for Christians. They were fired from their jobs, their churches were taken away, and many were arrested for their faith. For Pimenius, this must have been heartbreaking. The very student he had taught and baptized was now the one trying to destroy everything he held dear. As the danger grew in Rome, Pimenius had to make a difficult choice. To stay safe, he fled the city and went into exile, traveled all the way to a land called Persia, far away from Rome and the emperor's reach. Pimenius lived in Persia for 4 long years. During this time, a great sadness fell upon him, and the story tells us that he lost his sight and became blind. Can you imagine? Far from home, unable to see, and knowing that his former student was persecuting his friends and fellow Christians? It must have felt like a time of complete darkness, both literally and figuratively. But even in that darkness, God had a plan for Pimenius. One day, he had a vision. In this vision, Jesus spoke to him and told him something that sounded impossible. He told Pimenius to return to Rome, and he made a promise. If Pimenius went back to Rome, his sight would be restored. Think about how much courage that would take. Turning to Rome meant walking right back into the danger he had fled from. It meant facing the emperor who hated Christians. But Pimenius had faith. He trusted in God's promise. So, he packed up his things and began the long journey back home to Rome. And just as the vision promised, when he arrived back in the city, his sight was miraculously restored. He could see again. Now back in Rome around the year 362, something incredible happened. As Pimenius was walking near a road called the Salarian Way, he came face to face with none other than Emperor Julian himself. Julian was surprised to see his old teacher, recognized Pimenius immediately. Perhaps feeling a little bit of old affection for his tutor, Julian smiled and said he was happy to see him. Then he added, "Glory to the gods." He was, of course, talking about his pagan gods. Now, this was the moment of truth for Pimenius. He was standing in front of the most powerful man in the world, a man who could have him executed in an instant. He could have stayed silent. He could have just nodded politely. But Pimenius was filled with a holy courage. He looked at the emperor and replied with a clever and powerful statement. He said that he too was delighted, because now it was impossible for him to see Julian. On one level, he was referring to the time he was blind and couldn't see anything. But on a deeper spiritual level, he was saying that he could not see or recognize the emperor's new pagan way of life. He couldn't accept it. Then Pimenius boldly declared his own faith. He said, "Glory to the Lord whom I worship, Jesus Christ, the Nazarene, the crucified." He gave glory not to the emperor's false gods, but to the one true God, Jesus, who was crucified for our salvation. Well, Emperor Julian was furious. He felt insulted and disrespected. His old teacher had defied him in front of everyone. In a fit of rage, Julian gave a terrible order, commanded his soldiers to take Pimenius and throw him from a bridge into the deep-flowing Tiber River. Pimenius, who had survived exile and blindness, became a martyr for his faith, drowning in the river because he refused to deny Jesus Christ. But the story doesn't end there. Christians in Rome were brave too. A kind and pious woman named Candida knew what had happened. She courageously went to the river, found the body of St. Pimenius, and pulled it from the water. She wanted to give him a proper Christian burial. She took his body to a place called the Cemetery of Poncinus and laid him to rest in a crypt, a special underground burial chamber. Because of his incredible courage and his ultimate sacrifice, the Church has honored Pimenius as a saint and a martyr ever since. In fact, we have ancient proof of his veneration. In that same cemetery, there is a fresco, a painting on a wall, that was made in the 7th century. This ancient painting is believed to show St. Pimenius, proving that Christians remembered and honored him for his bravery just a few centuries after his death. So, what can we learn from the story of St. Pimenius today? First, he teaches us that being a teacher, a mentor, or even just a good friend is a very important job. The things we teach and the example we set can have a huge impact on others, just like Pimenius had on Julian, even if they later choose a different path. Second, his story is a powerful reminder about courage. St. Pimenius wasn't a soldier or a general. He was a humble priest and teacher. But when the time came, he showed incredible bravery. He stood up to the most powerful person he knew and spoke the truth without fear. His story teaches us that we can all be brave for Jesus. Whether we're facing a big challenge or just a small one, like standing up for a friend or telling the truth when it's hard. And finally, St. Pimenius shows us what it means to be truly faithful. He remained loyal to Jesus through everything, through exile, blindness, and even in the face of death. He knew that his love for God was more important than his own life. So as we remember St. Pimenius on his feast day, December 2nd, let's ask him to pray for us. Let's ask for the grace to be good teachers and learners of the faith, for the courage to always stand up for what is right, and for a faith that is strong enough to handle any challenge that comes our way. St. Pimenius, witness for Christ, pray for us. Thanks so much for joining us for another story. We hope you were inspired by the life of this incredible saint. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next episode of Catechism for Kids. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and healthy as usual. See you next time, and God bless you always.